Alright, welcome back everybody. This is GTM, and we are going to cover a basic video tutorial on your spline modeling in 3D Studio Max 2011. Alright, this video is made for my intro to modeling students. And if you happen to be someone from outside and found it on YouTube or the internet somewhere, uh, feel free to join us. Hopefully, maybe you'll pick up some modeling techniques if you're basically new to any kind of 3D program, or at least 3D Max, that is. All right, as for my students, let's go ahead and you're supposed to go into the forums. Remember it's www.planetgtm.com, and I'm gonna go ahead and launch that up to where you gotta you're at least to show where you're supposed to be going, and that is your right here, this category, ADTLV, Intro to Modeling 3D Max. You're going to go to Labs, Homeworks, and Quizzes, and we are in Week 3, Part 1. As you can see here, we have 3 vases we're going to knock out for one of our labs. And don't worry about the skyline render, light trace. We don't do that anymore. You're going to be doing your ambient occlusions. So, like I said, this is a little simple wireframe here. So you are to save this image. Normally I make you grayscale out your images, but in this case the contrast is pretty dark. So just feel free to save it onto your desktop into a folder, and then we can continue. Alright, awesome. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. And then I'm going to go ahead and launch up 3D Max here. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is actually put our our reference image into our front viewport here. And remember the hotkey is Alt B, or like I said, if you're not used to that yet, just go to Views, Viewport Background, and then click it right here. And then in the file background source, we're going to click and look for our image, basically our reference image, which is our vases here. Make sure to match bitmap, lock zoom pan, then press OK. Alright, and just do a quick zoom in and out to make sure you locked it in properly. And for now I'm going to hit my G key and Alt W, and I'm going to kind of take my magnifying glass and just kind of zoom in properly, and we'll be ready to start. Alright, let's go ahead and continue now. Alright, as you can see, we have our image in our viewport here, and we got 3, I guess they're kind of like genie bottles of some sort, I don't know. 2 of them we're going to spline, 1 of them we're going to spline model and use a combination of polygon modeling. Now the one thing I do want you to recognize, or pay close attention to, is that our reference image is not a true orthographic image. So as you watch me build the spline to this reference image, I'm going to be building it straight down across as if it were orthographic. You never want to match the curve of it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and go to my spline tools, which are basically known as shapes. There's your shapes, you have splines. If you drop down the list, you obviously have NURB curves and extended splines. I'm going to go ahead and click on my line tool. Now, of course, you have different types of splines to work with, and another time you can probably explore with these. I'll eventually do a video tutorial on your text as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click my line here, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom up a little bit on this first vase here. Now if I click here, remember this is activated line, I'm going to click, hold down shift, that keeps it straight. Now remember, this is what I don't want you doing. I don't want you doing this and then trying to click all these little splines to try to make a shape. That's just too much points, and it's just going to become a big mess here. So let's go ahead and delete back. Let's start off. The idea is to try to create your points as less as possible, with less, as less verts as possible. So I'm going to click, shift down here because we got to pretend this is straight, and then I'm just going to kind of visually kind of get the idea. I'm sorry, we're gonna click here, and I'm gonna somewhat kind of visually make this part up. I'm assuming it looks something like that towards the bottom. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and move this over here. I'm gonna click here, then right about here, and like I said, I'm not gonna get too detailed with this. I'm just gonna go right here, click here, here, up here, 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 click here. I'm gonna kind of click around, and then from the inside I'm going and matching the vertex points. Now just to let you know, if you happen to break your spline, say like right here, I actually broke it off and it's not continuing. This will happen to a lot of you. That's alright, just go ahead and take your line tool again and then just get close to it. Click again. It doesn't mean that the line's attached, but we can attach them later. So I'm going to finish out the line. I'll click here and here. Now right here I don't want to go all the way down here. For example, I don't want to do this and then finish it off like that. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to Control Z. I want to go from here down, then maybe right here, and then close it off right there. Basically what I've done, and let me highlight these, just like your edges on your polygons. We can change the colors here, and I'm going to make this kind of like a yellow, just so you can see it better. Alright, now as you can see, what we did was, it's like taking trace or a pencil and tracing the outlines of the vase, and we're doing the inside as well, the contour of it. Now the next thing is, let's talk about this line a little bit here that we just drawn or just laid down. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the shape itself, and I'm going to go to the modify panel, and right here you have your drop down list or your sub-object level of your line, just like your polygons. So I'm going to click the little plus sign. You got your vertexes, your segments, and your splines. So let me explain a little bit about these. Your vertexes are your vertex points that connect a line. And you can highlight them like that or whatnot. Alright, your segments are basically a line between two vertex points. That's a segment. Depending on what line you're picked off. We don't have this one selected. Remember, it's been broken off. Alright, and then your spline is a whole line itself that's been connected. So in this case, the first line we created, as you can see, we had it connected all the way around and it stopped right there. That's a good way to test if you have openings in your splines that have not been closed off. Always check like that. Click on your spline and just check on a line and see if it highlights all the way red. And if it doesn't, that means that down here are vertex points. One of them are not connected. So if I grab a vertex point and I can click on that and I can see that, oh, it's not connected. Alright, so the next job for us to do is actually, shape out the spline and actually, first of all, we got to connect it. So we'll do that in the next few steps. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and, what we're going to do now is basically attach these two lines together. Now remember, in my, if I click spline, I click here, I can see that my lines are not attached. So there's a couple ways we can go about this. I'm just going to go to my attach button right here. It doesn't matter where you're at, in vertex, spline, or whatnot. So I'm going to click on spline. You have attach. You can click that. And if you notice, if you mouse over the second line, the cursor kind of changes and it's letting you know, hey, there's another spline here. So we can actually click it and it attaches it. Now that's one way of doing it. Another way is, if you have multiple splines, you can click on attach multiple and that will show all your lines. In this case, we only have one that we want, that we could attach, but we basically already attached it, so I'm going to hit cancel. Turn it off now. Now, even though we attach these, we still want to check our spline to see if does it run all the way through, and obviously it doesn't. You can see the red, but then it breaks off. It still looks broken off here, even though they're attached together. Because see, now we can move them as one whole. Or at least that segment. Let me grab the whole line itself. There. And as you can see, we can still move it, but we have an opening. So now we got to weld that vertex together. So obviously it's this point right here. So the trick is, you're going to zoom up. Go ahead and highlight them both like that. Come down to your control panel over here. I'm going to raise this up. and there's two steps. You got to go fuse. You got to click that. That fuses the line together, but it still does not weld them. It just stacks them on top of each other. So that is your fuse. So highlight them. Make sure you fuse them first, and then you weld them at 0.1. And then now, if you see these little tangent handles pop up, the green ones, that's letting you know, hey, that vertex has been welded. So now, if we go back and check our spline, click it, then you can see, oh, hey, look, our spline is all one segment now, or basically one big line around. All right, the next step is, let's go ahead and shape this out now. That's why when we were clicking and creating our line, we were trying to do it in less points as possible. And then, of course, we did the outside and then the contour of the inside. So the first thing I'm going to do is let's get at least the base shape. So I'm going to highlight this vert right here. I'm going in my vertex mode. I'm going to highlight this vert. I'm going to right click. I'm going to hit or check smooth. And as you can see, it smooths out that line, so I'm going to kind of shape that out. I'm going to come over here, highlight these, smooth, and then I'm going to kind of shape that out and match the bottle somewhat. Alright, let's see. Okay, from here now, what we're going to do is, I can easily come in here and be like, alright, well, let's, we can right click these and all three of them, try to smooth them out, but obviously that didn't work, so Control Z. How about I just grab these two middle ones right here, right click, and smooth. There we go. And then I can just kind of grab each one individually and shape it up, which I'm doing right here. That looks pretty good. And then, I'm going to come up here, kind of zoom up. And by the way, I'm just middle mousing and panning. And I'm kind of straightening this. That's why it's always good to get in here and really work out your details. So I'm going to highlight just these two. Right click, smooth. Maybe I'll even bring those back a little bit. Right here, kind of, I can actually maybe right click these, hit smooth. No, that doesn't look too good. So I'm actually gonna, we're going to, yeah, I guess we could smooth these, but before we do that, I want to show you the tops here. Like, I basically don't want to highlight both of these and try to smooth them. You might get a decent look, but I'm going to teach you a new tool. I'm going to highlight both of these and come down here, and it's called fillet. I guess it's fillet, something like that. With those two selected, I'm going to crank these up, and as you can see, it rounds off. It's basically like chamfering your edges, but it's like chamfering the vertex, kind of. But here's chamfer. So if I click that, that's chamfering your edge. This is actually rounding it off. So I'm going to round it off slightly, just like that. And then from there, I might highlight these, right click, and maybe smooth those, and I can probably tuck that, bring it down just a little bit. There we go. That looks pretty good. And then I'll work on the details down here as well. So I'm just panning up or panning down, and I'm going to grab that corner and let's go ahead and fillet that a little bit just to round it off. I may do it right here slightly. 1, 2, just like that. Alright, and then of course this one last part, I'm going to click that vertex and smooth that out and just kind of raise that up, tuck it right about there somewhere to round it off. There you go. Now we have our first smoothed out line. I'm actually going to just reposition a few of these to kind of tighten it up a little bit. Alright, that looks pretty good. Alright, the next step I'm going to do is basically I'm going to add a lathe modifier on this line. Now remember, or what I'm trying to basically explain here is a lathe. The lathe modifier, has anybody, well, basically what it is like, like carpenters that lay down table legs on lathe machines, or how ball bats are created. They kind of spin on that big machine and there's like a chisel that basically carves it out. So this is our lathe modifier, which you're about to see right now. So I'm going to click on that, go to my modify list, and I'm going to look for lathe. It's right here. You're going to click that. Now chances are you're going to get this weird looking effect going on. So I'm going to actually Alt W, and this is what it's looking like right now. So if I if I actually take this access point right here on the lathe, I can reposition this, pull it back, and I'll start to shape out the bottle. Now here's the problem though. If you see black like that, that means your faces are flipped inside out. So if you look down here, we have flip normals. I can click that, and now it's flipped around. Alright, I'm also going to hit F4 just so I can see my edges. And I'm going to Alt W so we can kind of zoom up on here and get a little more, a better look at what's going on. Now, here you see you have your segments. I can crank that up to round it off more. You don't want to go too high. That's just crazy. So, right here, that's 3, sorry. I want to say about, I don't know, let's go 35 looks good. Now maybe we'll go 37. Alright. So now you got a pretty good looking vase. Now also, you have your degrees here. That's 0. This is, obviously 45. You can go 45, 180, all the way to 360. It completes the whole revolution there. Now, of course, you have your different directions, which I don't want to do. If you click these, it's just going to, rearrange the direction. That's, if I do that, look. Well, basically, it does something like that. That's on the x-axis. Oh, look, I got a hubcap now or something. What's the y-axis? This is the z-axis. See, now, problem is, when I do that, I have to actually redo the spline. So I'm going to actually, or the lathe, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. That's why I didn't want to do it. And I'm just dropping the lathe right back on it. Alright, and then I'm taking the access. So I'm dropping down the access point. And I'm going to push that back. But I want to make sure I'm matching my, drawing here, or my reference. Alright, so looks like we got a pretty good looking vase, and that's a good starting point. Now right here at the bottom, don't worry if it's not welded, like in this case, I don't want to close it out. Like I said, we can always convert this to a poly and close it out, but that's no big deal. Alright, now here's the interesting thing. So now I have my lathe down, but I can still manipulate this. I'm in my front viewport, by the way. I'm Alt Wing. If you go to the vertex of the line, right now we're in the lathe, but if I go to the vertex of the line, show end results, just like in when we polygon model, I can still access these points and manipulate it. Maybe on different looks, different bottles. I can even add points. So I'm going to turn that off so you can see. There's a tool called Refine, and you can add points and then, obviously manipulate those. Not that I want any points, so I'm just going to Control Z, just let you know you can actually, refine points and add new segments. So yeah, that's a very interesting technique here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my lathe back on. Go back to vertex and show end results. That way we can work in smooth form and I can, manipulate it. But in this case, I just want to keep it the way it is. Alright, so, and if it helps out, we could crank this up just a little bit more on our lathe. Maybe go a couple more segments. I don't want to go too heavy. Alright, and I'm going to hit F4, and there goes a decent looking vase that we have. Alright, so, once you're happy with something, you can feel free to right click it, collapse to, lock it in place. And then we have one vase done. And then we're off to the second one now. Alright, we're going to go ahead and continue the next one. Now this one should go fairly pretty easy. So, I'm going to go ahead and go to my line tool. And like I said, once you got the hang of it, like I said, it'll get pretty easier as you go. Now, don't get me wrong, like I said, I showed you earlier in class how to model polygon modeling. And it's very important to understand polygon modeling. To me, it's the most important polygon method. Don't feel like you always have to model everything with splines for simple objects like this. Splines has its purpose. The trick is to actually combine your modeling techniques. Like I said, eventually, which we'll do with this one right here. But I'm going to go ahead and start the second one. I'm going to kind of whip through this somewhat quick. So I'm going to take my line tool here. Just click. I'm going to hold down shift. Click again. I'll probably click here once there. We'll go here. Here. I'm going to click here. Right here. And I'm just kind of getting the contour of it. And I'll close that off. And then on the back side, I'm matching somewhat the verts. And then I'm gonna kind of go here. All right, so there goes my line. Obviously, I did it one shot, so they're all together. Now, just to zoom, just for details, I'm gonna come in here and zoom in. I'm gonna go in my vertex or my vertex mode here, and then I'm gonna adjust these and just tighten them up, or maybe get these to match a little bit. Bring these in closer. That's up to you really. That's just me. I like to kind of make sure things go smoothly. I'm gonna bring this up about right there. Maybe I'll tighten this up just slightly. Alright, that looks pretty good. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and smooth these out now. So I'm going to highlight this, right click, smooth. And you know what, let's go ahead and just, now we can do a couple things. We can fillet it or just right click and smooth it. In this case, maybe I wanted them to be a little more angled in. Actually, that looks pretty good. We can go about like that. But like I said, I can always come back and say, you know what, watch, I'm going to Control Z. Instead of smoothing it, I can come to that tool I introduced you to last time, which was fillet, and maybe slightly fill that out so I have more of a corner. Here I'll probably smooth these. Right click, smooth, and then of course I'm going to tuck that in a bit. Maybe move that one. Here I'm going to bring these back slightly. Tuck this in. Alright, let's go down here. Let's go ahead and right click and smooth those. In this situation, this might be a little different. So, let's go ahead and, oh no, we're okay. We just got to bring this down a bit. And, I can actually kind of step these back out like that. Alright, let's go ahead and click on these. I'm going to go ahead and smooth those out. And then I'm going to kind of pull these back a bit. I'm going to right click, smooth those out. And let's see if we can actually get these to flow right. I'm just going to reposition these. We may actually just remove those. So I can hit delete. And then, just work with those, and that works just as well. Sometimes you don't need certain vertexes. You can get rid of them. Alright, let's just go ahead and finish this up now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take both of these and just fillet them a little bit. I'm going to crank it up one. There we go. That looks fine. And then I'm going to take this and just smooth it out. And there we go. Something like that. And I'll probably bring this just down a little bit. Alright, there we go. We got our, looks like our spline looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and go to my modifier list and drop down a lathe on it. And then make sure you go to your lathe access point, and then notice my access point's down here. I'm going to actually raise that up slightly, and just so I can kind of pull it over. Alright, notice we forgot to handle the tops here, but that's okay. I can come back, go to my vertexes, and do them right there, or I can do it as in show end results. I can highlight them like that, and then I can fillet those. There you go. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Let's go to our perspective. Alright, we got to remember that these are flipped in and out, so I'm going to go flip norms. That looks pretty good. And my segments are at 52. I'm going to hit F. You know, that's pretty high, but you know, I mean, as long as you don't crank them crazy, you know, you just need to keep it relatively even. I don't know, 50 could be good, I guess. You just want to get rid of faceted edges. That looks fine. Alright, so looks like we got our second one done now. Now, of course, we can make some slight adjustments. I can go to my vertex points and show end results on it. Maybe I want to reposition these slightly. You know, you can do something like that, or maybe I do want to. No, that looks good. We don't need to make too much of a adjustments. Alright, so there we go. I'm going to hit F4. We have two bases done now. Oh, one thing I want to show you, I didn't last time. Your lathe tool, that's why we build it inside the contour, inside and the outside. As you can see, when I 360 it, you can see the line as we drew it, and that's why we don't close out the bottom all the way. We basically just, you know, when we draw the line, we don't close it, we don't bring it down here, you just close it right there. I guess trying to make the inside of it. I don't know if that made any sense. But alright, so I'm going to bring this back to 360, and there we go. We have two vases now. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and I'm happy with it. I'm not going to do any adjustments, so I'm going to go ahead and collapse it. There we go, two vases. Alright, so now last is our third vase here, which we're going to lathe, and then we're going to build certain pieces separately with the polygon technique.